Hi guys, welcome back. I want to do a fun video showing the capabilities of ChatGPT and its use in Python. So I found this cool post. This is from Gad Levinon from LinkedIn, and this is showing average annual growth of real potential GDP and its components. So if you look at real potential GDP, it seems to grow more slowly from 2025 to 2055 as projected by the Congressional Budget Office. From 1995 to 2024, GDP growth was on average 2.4%, and they project GDP growth in the following decade to be 2%. And then in about 20 years, it should be 1.6%, and in 30 years, it will be 1.4% on average. So in the following 3 decades, we should expect to see a decline in average GDP growth. So Gad thinks this is a masterclass in pessimism, and I think I agree with him. So we're going to look at GDP growth. I'm going to use GDP growth data from the IMF, which I previously used in another video. I'm going to post that up above, and we're going to use that GDP growth to plot in Python, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to use ChatGPT. So go to chatgpt.com. You can use your Google email and password and log in. If you log into ChatGPT, you will get better responses. If you don't log in, some of the responses won't be as direct. For instance, I'm going to ask for a link to US real GDP growth from the IMF. If I'm logged in, I'm going to get a nice direct link. I don't see the direct link here. Sometimes you have to ask ChatGPT again. And there we go. So I'm going to click the link, and you can see the data here for the United States. I see real GDP growth. I'm going to click that, scroll down. Here's the GDP growth data. So this is what we want. Let's get the Excel file, and this is for the selected country data. So left click that. You can see the download here above. Let's open this up real quick. So this is in my downloads folder. I'm going to want to move this to my working directory here, which is Lens E. But let's open it first in a Google Sheet and make sure it's in the right format for Python. All right, so I have a blank spreadsheet here. I'm going to go to File and Import, and then Upload, go to Downloads. We can see the file here. I'm going to import data, and here's the data. Now we want the dates and the GDP growth values to be in columns. So I'm going to scroll over to the right here, hold a shift, and then left click the GDP growth value for 2024. Now the IMF has projections for 2025, 2026, and so on. We're just going to use the actual data, not the projections from IMF. I'm going to hit Control C. I'll open another sheet here at the bottom, and then I'm going to right click in cell A1, paste special, and transposed. All right, this is how the data should look. Let's go ahead and remove the second column here. Rename column A year, and column B I'll call growth. And let's call this spreadsheet growth. Keep it real simple for this one. Then I'll go to File and Download. We have just one sheet here with 2 variables. Let's use comma separated values, a CSV file. There it is. It's called growth, sheet 1. Let's open this up and move it into our working directory. Okay, so I just moved it into my working directory, and I'm going to rename it. I just want a simple name like growth. So that is a CSV file, comma separated values file in my working directory for Python. You can see some other Python projects I have in here. So we can close out of this. We'll close out of the IMF, and let's open a program editor. I'll hit Control N to open a new file, and then Control S. We're going to save it as a Python program, growth.py. So your editor now knows that this is a Python program, and that's useful for you when you're editing. Let's go back to ChatGPT here. Let's ask it, can you import a CSV file into Python for me and plot? The CSV file name is growth, and the variables are year and growth. And ChatGPT is somewhat conversational in its response, but it does give you a nice code. So here's the code here in the window. I'm just going to hit copy, go back to my editor, and then Control V, and there we have it. The file name is growth, as I specified. Year is my date variable. Growth has the GDP growth values. Let's go ahead and Control S and save, then open the command prompt and run. And there we go. Very simple plot of GDP growth over time. This is from the IMF using code from ChatGPT. Let's go back to that post from GAD. And GAD's post is actually from the Congressional Budget Office. So if we take a look at this, they think that GDP growth is going to decline over time. I wonder if we can look at past GDP growth averages and determine if GDP growth has in fact declined over time. Let's first find the average, and then maybe we can calculate some moving averages and see just exactly how much it has declined if it hasn't in fact declined. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT, can you find the average of growth and indicate the average on the y-axis? And ChatGPT says absolutely. Here's the updated code. In this case, ChatGPT has rewritten the entire program because it's such a small program, and I've given it all of the variables and the file name. We're good to go here if we just click copy. I'll go back to the editor, hit Control-A to select everything, and then Control-V to paste. And there's our new program. You can see we immediately put the CSV file into a data frame. We ensure that our year variable is treated as a string. Average growth is simply the mean of this growth column in the data frame. Let's go ahead and Control S and save, and then run the program again. The plot is still open, so the previous program is still running. I'm going to close this and run again. And there's our average. If we take a look at this, does it look like average GDP growth is declining over time? Well, we do see some GDP growth values in the past that are above the red line. And that would indicate that the average in the past was higher than it currently is. And if you look at recent GDP growth values, they are right around the red line and sometimes below the red line, notably soon after the financial crisis in 2008, 2009. So with a quick glance at this graph, it does look like GDP growth is declining over time. Let's calculate some moving averages, and we can have more of a moving trend to base the analysis off of. Close out of this. Can you show me some moving averages for, maybe we can do 10, 20, and 30 years. ChatGPT kindly obliges. Go ahead and copy. You can see it changed the code here. We have our 3 moving averages, and then we have some indications in the plot as well. Let's see what this looks like. Control A, Control V. I'll just paste over the previous code. Control S and save, and we'll plot. Here it is. Do a full screen. So if we look at this, first, what is the moving average? Each of these points in the moving average is an average of the previous years of GDP growth data. For instance, for the 10-year moving average, and we take this little point here in 1989, well, this is averaging the previous 10 years of GDP growth. So we take this point in 1989 and then average it with this point, 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 and this point, right? The previous 10 growth values. And so what that allows us to do is we can plot a trend over time. And if you look at the 10-year, the 20-year, and the 30-year average, what do we see? Well, the 10-year moving average is above the sample average in the past here. So the orange line is above 2.64, which is our sample average. And so is the green line, the 20-year moving average. Until about what point? Until that great financial crisis. Then these trends dip below the sample average. And so that indicates this decline in 2009. That was not a great year for the US. High unemployment. Of course, here we have negative GDP growth. Well, this great decline is affecting future trends. It's affecting the future moving averages. So when we take the average for 2009 to find these trends, it's including this really large decline in GDP growth. So we'll take the average here for 10 years. We're including this huge decline along with these past values here. But that huge decline will bring down the average significantly and therefore the trend. So when we look at these trends over time, they do seem to decline. However, if you look at the past 3 years, 2024, 2023, 2022, they're right around the sample average and even above. So maybe this is a pessimistic look from the CBO. Now let's consider the moving average for the 10-year. The moving average for the 10-year trend is above the sample average, 2.64, but it's not remarkably higher. This looks like it's hovering right around 3%, which is 0.4% higher than the sample average. The same for the 20-year moving average. It's above the sample average, but not by that much. So if we were to forecast future GDP growth in the US in the next 10, 20, 30 years, would we forecast 2% in the next 10 years, 1.6% in the next 20 years, and 1.4% in the next 30 years? If we go back 30 years to 1994, the trend isn't that far above the sample average of 2.64. It's maybe 0.4% above. So in 30 years, just a rough estimate, maybe we'll be 0.4% below the sample average. Maybe we'll be closer to 2%. It may be true that the GDP growth declines over time, but I wouldn't say it declines by this much. We wouldn't expect it to. In 30 years, we might see a decline to around 2% maybe. But keep in mind, this is based off of past values of GDP growth, and we're making predictions far into the future. In any case, I hope you guys liked this. I just wanted to showcase how easy it is to use ChatGPT. If you're doing data analysis, it is a very useful tool, especially with Python. But you can use ChatGPT with other programming languages. I hope you guys like this. Go ahead and like the video and comment below. If you want to see more projects like this, go ahead and let me know. Give me some ideas. What would you like to see? And I'll see you next time. All right, bye-bye.